Hello everyone, welcome to this video that I called Generating Income from a Spiritual Activity, Sacrilege or Not. I decided to make this video, and there will be others to follow, because I have a lot of clients or people I meet, people around me that I notice are having a hard time generating an income for themselves. The people that I meet are people that feel a very strong vocation to share something in the domain of spirituality or well-being, as a healer, as a yoga teacher, as a therapist, or whatever. And they just can't seem to generate the income to be able to sustain themselves. So at a certain point, what happens? Either they need to get a second job, or they abandon their vocation, they abandon their purpose. And I think this is a real shame. So I started looking into why this is. Why do we feel shame asking for money, asking for payment for a service in the domain of spirituality or well-being? So I decided to make this video to really look into that. But actually, this doesn't only apply to people that are active in these two domains. It applies to artists as well, and a lot of people who are self-employed. Because when we have a closer look at this, what I realized is that from a very early age, since we are children, we are taught that our value is determined by external sources. If we look at it, if we think about it, even when we're at school, our work is graded. We receive grades for the work that we do, for the drawings we make, for the tests that we take at school. So our work receives a value from our teacher. However we behave at home receives a value from our parents. Our parents tell us when we are doing something that is good, when we are doing something that is bad, when they are proud of us. So our behavior receives a value that is determined by our parents. So we are taught that our value is determined by how other people receive or perceive our actions. So it is an external thing. Our value is determined by external sources. Later on, when we go to work, when we find a job, we are not the ones who determine our value or who decide on our salary, but our future employer or our employer decides on the salary that we receive. So again, our intelligence, our competences, our capabilities, our work is valued by an external source. So what happens when we decide to create our own work, our own job, when we become self-employed, is that for a lot of people it is very hard, it is a very difficult exercise to determine the value of our work because we are not used to it. Because we are so used to receiving the value from external sources that we don't know how to determine the value of our work, the value of what we're putting out. And very often we undervalue what we're doing. We undervalue our time. And not only that, but during our whole lives, we are prepared to take a job working for someone else. We are not prepared to be self-employed. This is very often, or in the majority of the cases, not what we're being taught at school. We are being prepared, we do follow-up studies. When we're 18, we go to university. And all of this is to prepare us to take a job in a big company or an institution, and to be part of that company or that institution. So again, we're enrolled to work to create the vision or to adhere to the values of someone else. So when we decide, when this point comes in life and we decide that we want to create our own lives, that we want to live according to our vocation, so we become self-employed, we start to create our own work. With a lot of people, what I've noticed is that they feel a sense of disloyalty and sometimes even betrayal. And they feel disloyalty towards the education that they receive, maybe the values of the family or the values of the society that taught them to be part of the society. Like it is felt as a disloyalty to decide not to be a part of this any longer and to work for ourselves, as if it were some kind of selfish decision to do this. So this creates, of course, all kinds of resistances and conflicts on the inside of us. And when we're not clear about this, these conflicts translate to the outside. What we send out is a very unclear message. We come across as not sure about ourselves or not certain about our value. When we are not sure or certain about the value of what we have to offer, of course, other people will pick up on that energy and they won't want to work with us because they feel unsure about the value of what we have to offer as well. So this sense of disloyalty or betrayal is a very big part of why we feel resistance. There's also this kind of thought or dynamic of, well, we're taught that work is something that is hard. Work is hard. This is why we receive a salary, because it is hard, because it is something that we don't actually wish to do. So doing something that we love and doing something that is our passion, that is our vocation, in our minds, this is a fun pastime and it is impossible to receive money or to receive a salary for this. As if this work that is fun for us, that corresponds to our vocation, to our passion, doesn't deserve to receive a salary. In our minds, and again, this is through our educational system and the society in which we grow up, we receive the message that work is supposed to be hard, that work is supposed to be difficult. And so again, there's this guilt when we extract ourselves from this and we decide to do something different, as if we don't really have the right to live from our passion while other people still go to work and do something that they don't like to earn a living. And by the way, this is something that we really need to banish from our vocabulary. We never earn a living. We have the right to be alive. We have the right to feel alive from the moment we are born. This is not something we have to earn. We earn a salary. We earn wages, but we don't earn a living. So all of these things create conflict inside of us and create this sensation of guilt. And this is what makes a lot of people give their services away for free, offer a lot of things for free, or forget to ask payment for their services, or don't dare to ask payment for their services because they are receiving payment for something that they actually love doing. Well, if you don't accept to receive payment for your services, your activity will never be sustainable and you will not be able to live from your vocation and you will have to go back to something that you don't love doing. Let's have a look at the alternative. Say you want to offer your services for free. You want to give everything away for free. So we know that in the world that we live in today, you still have rent to pay or housing to pay. You still have food to pay. So there are expenses in your everyday life. So what are the alternatives to cover your expenses in your daily life? Well, there are two main alternatives. So the first one was already mentioned, is that you get a job that pays the bills, a job that pays your expenses. So this job is something that doesn't correspond to your vocation and is an activity that you just take on for the sole purpose of gaining a salary and of being able to pay your expenses. The problem with this is that when we do something, when we engage our energy into an action that really doesn't correspond to who we are and that very often doesn't correspond to our values, that is often far away from our vocation or our purpose, we lose a lot of energy into this activity. It is an activity that drains our energy. And we might have this utopian idea of, well, we'll just do this job, and after our hours we'll work on our vocation, on our life's purpose. But the reality is that there will be very little energy left to work on our vocation and to really develop what we want to create, what we want to see happen in this world. And what will happen is that this activity or this project that is so important for us will be pushed further and further back to the background until it becomes really an afterthought in our lives. And we spend less and less energy on this until it completely disappears. Another alternative is to receive financial support from an external source. So this financial support can either be through compensation for unemployment, or it can come from family members or from a spouse. The problem with external financial support is that it's always conditional. There is no such thing as free money. There are always conditions that apply to receiving money from an external source. Maybe this isn't said literally, or maybe there is no contract for this exchange or for this support. But in the case of family members or a spouse, so there will be invisible conditions or invisible expectations from you for receiving this financial support. What this means is that you will have to compromise. You will have to compromise on your vision, on the time you spend on your project, on the time you spend on the activity that is your passion or your vocation, and that you won't be able to really adhere 100% to your values. It means that you are not entirely free. So financial freedom gives you the freedom to make your own choices and to really stay aligned to your purpose, aligned to your vision, and bring into being your project in the way that you envision it. Otherwise, you will always have to compromise on certain subjects, and the end result will be a compromise, will be not something that corresponds 100% to who you are or what you wanted to create. And then last but not least, as a resistance or as an obstacle to generating income, and especially from a spiritual activity or from an activity in the sphere of well-being, is that somehow it is felt to be unethical. As if somehow by doing this you are monetizing God or monetizing the divine, which of course is impossible. What you are monetizing is not God or is not spirituality. What you are monetizing is your time, is your energy, or your services. This is what you're asking money for you to be able to take care of your needs. The problem with this thinking as well is that there is a separation between activities that are divine and sacred and activities that are not divine and not sacred. So it is okay to pay for the bread you're buying, it is okay to pay for the movie you're watching, because those are not sacred. But it is not okay to receive an income for a spiritual service because this is sacred and this is divine and this is part of the divine. Well, I don't see things like that. For me, there is no separation between things that are divine or not divine. There's no invisible portal or door that we can walk through and decide that this part of our lives is not divine, not sacred, and this part is. So this part has to answer to different standards and different values than this part. For me, personally, I make no more separation between my personal life and my professional life, because I feel a vocation as a spiritual teacher. This is very much part of every part of my life, and it means it influences every one of my choices. And I feel that the way in which you behave at every single moment is a reflection of the divine within. whatever we see outside of ourselves is not separate from the divine or the sacred, but is a part of it. Everything in existence is part of the divine. We all come, and everything originates from this same unique source. So everything is divine. It is the intention with which we create, with which we share, that makes something really an expression of the divine or not. And it is above all our inner alignment to the divine within, to our purpose, that determines if our actions are aligned or in harmony with the divine or not. So for me, someone that is aligned to his purpose and that comes and repairs the sink is as much engaged in a sacred activity than someone who would organize a prayer ritual or a meditation. These are different vocations, but both of them are part of reality, and both of them can be part of the divine. So I don't make this separation, this division. And if anything, I find that being part of the same system as everyone else puts you at the same level of everyone else. You live in the world with the same constraints as every other person. So for me, what is the best way to live a life with a very strong spiritual vocation? Well, or a vocation to be of service to other people, it is making sure that we are free and independent as much as possible, which means also being financially independent. And aside from that, making sure that every aspect of our life corresponds as much as possible to our inner alignment and to our inner harmony, to our purpose, to our soul, or whatever our soul came here to express into this world, our soul's purpose, our vocation. So for me, making sure that our professional lives correspond to our vocation makes total sense.